I'm Leslie Vann. I'm a retired person who's been kept busy by working on various festivals, including the Beltane Spring Fair Group, Beltane Festival in May, and now the Artbeat Festival in June in the Clarendon Park area of Leicester. I tend to overdo quite a lot. I've got a limit of 3 things a day in the library. In my diary, which is very much like a library actually. And those 3 things are generally involving a meeting where I meet with either people from interfaith or various school bodies or just friends. I have 5 poetry groups that I'm a member of. And the evenings, likewise, I go to poetry meetings, reading my work. I've read in the Y and in the Criterion, and at a few of the groups I've been published a couple of times. Very often words just come to me and I have to write them down and make them into a poem later on. But more often than not, one of the reasons I belong to 5 poetry groups is I need a construct to work to, which can be either a title or a theme or an actual direct sort of type, like a sonnet or a haiku. I find it very difficult just to sit and write on my own, but when I do, it comes fairly easily. The other reason I'm a member of 5 different poetry groups is because, left to myself, I would have hundreds and hundreds of half-formed poems and not one of them actually tidied up and finished. I find it sparks off when I'm in the company of other people who have got creative ideas to which I can add. People who are concerned about what's going around in the world. People who love the environment. People in general, I think. I'm not terribly observant as such, but I enjoy the sight of people in the wider world. Again, another reason for poems has always been so I can write down something that I can read back and see what it was that's come out. I'm very good at mindfulness. I don't have to actually practice it because I do it all the time. I'm just here in the moment, and whether that's a result of my lurid past in the 60s and 70s, I've got no idea. But I can't remember ever being in a situation where I actually thought about things on their own. I either write things out, or when I speak, I actually make it up as I go along, which has often got me into trouble. And it's only in my latter years, the last 10 years, again through meetings, which is one of the reasons I probably go to them so often, that I've actually learned to hold my tongue and bide my time and try and remember what it was I was going to say long enough to say it out during the course of an appropriate moment. I can't even think of thought patterns without thinking poetry, form, substance, Shakespeare. No, I can't. I don't. I think I'm a reactive person rather than a thoughtful person. I don't think I've got a mind set. I have come across a lot of set minds that don't take in a lot, that are rigid, that are hard and formed. Sort of, I'm making a square with my hands. Probably because I think they must have been square people. I don't actually think I've got a mindset as such. I have a mind that works within strict boundaries, I think, of background, colour, experience. And in that sense, I am quite rigid, and I'm constantly surprised by especially young people suddenly opening my eyes up to something I had never contemplated. Contemplated, that's thinking, isn't it? Never sort of brought into my consciousness would probably be a better way of saying it. I'm not very good at reading people at all. I am good at reading the cards, which are a formula, same as a poetry frame is a formula. The cards are a universal, thinking in the Jungian sense, symbol or series of symbols that are adaptable to every person and every situation that I have ever come across as of yet. I sometimes misinterpret it because there are lots of different interpretations to that system and to each card. But generally, from my experience, the particular cards always resonate with the particular person that has drawn them. They are like a mystery, and the tarot cards are a bit like windows of possibility that they're opening to me, if you like. And those opportunities of possibilities, they may not see themselves. And in that sense, I have an insight into that which resonates with them. If, for instance, going on with the tarot cards, if I open a perception for someone to release emotion or explain what they're about or to understand what's going on for them, it's often a form of counselling. And with counselling, the idea is not to get your mind out, but to get the emotions out a lot of the time as an expressed form. And I don't actually see emotions necessarily as a mind thing. They could perhaps be triggered by the mind, same as I weep when I think of all the dead of the last few wars and the genocides and everything else. But that's just triggering it. It's like the mind is opening a shutter for me. The emotions come out unbidden. And funnily enough, the best part of psychological advice I'd ever had for bringing out my emotions was I went saying that I cried a lot to the doctors, and he said, that's water intoxication. And I said, what? He said, that's water intoxication. How much do you drink at night? And I said, oh, I have about 2, sometimes 3 pints in the evening and bedtime, because I get very dry mouth. And he said, think back to when you were young. When did you first use water to stifle your emotions? And I said, actually I can remember. It was when I was 8 at my granddad's, and the cousins were all outside, and I had run in from the garden because they'd started calling me names and I didn't want to stay there. I rushed into the kitchen where all the grown-ups were getting ready to put the tea out, and I went to the sink and I drank a glass or 2 of water to stop me crying so I could go out again. And that's perhaps why I don't think it's a mind thing. I think it's a physical reality, and the emotions come out when you let them. Nothing to do with the mind saying, oh, you've got to release this now, you've got to do that now. The body just does it itself. I know how happy I feel when I have a bar of chocolate.